Alrighty, welcome back everyone. This is MrCati. Now, I've done a number of previous reports involving the ley lines and my observation of a special area that surrounds Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York City, which, as I showed, was coded for the entire time frame that Pope Francis was going to be here. Now, I've also done a number of reports on, obviously, Walmart, Jade Helm, the code contained in both those. And in each of those, I've shown, for instance, in the Jade Helm logo, I showed that a six-pointed star was applicable. We saw that the Walmart logo, the sunburst, was a six-pointed star. Once again, I saw it to be the Star of David, the Shield of David, a six-pointed star. Now, to me, this is indicative of a Zionist element. I can't ignore that. But okay. In my most recent discussion with regard to the Pope, finding all of those code dates in this image, based on the fact that the code was derived from lines that were derived from Earth grid ley lines, that I stated didn't exist, because you see, when our nation was founded and certain cities started to become populated, someone, as I stated in previous videos, someone had to have known the future in order to have done what was done in the places it was done, irrespective of all the reasons that there could exist, the politics, the money, locations, availability, all the things, that, all these other elements. I want to try to keep it as simple as possible, and let's just think of it this way, is that in this special area of our nation, these cities specifically, where we've already experienced a 911 event in New York City at the Twin Towers, Washington, D.C., that we already know from many previous researchers that it's organized and laid out in a coded way. Now, for me to discover this special five-sided area, and that by placing a six-pointed star, which once again which was in my mind a Zionist element, a marker of Zionism, to realize that the code generated from both the fact that the cities were laid out before Earth grid ley lines were supposedly even discovered or known, well, you got to keep certain things in mind. And so I'm laying this out again, because as I move into some areas here, I'm going to be the first one to tell you. I'm going to have to touch on some religious elements, which I don't feel best qualified to discuss. But since I've always held true, if I always said if the code showed me something of a religious element, I couldn't ignore it, just because I don't like to talk religion, which is to me mixing apples and oranges. If you're doing an investigation and all you can do is say, don't worry, you're washed in the blood of Christ, well, then you're not really keeping an open mind to what's before you. In other words, it's like you're saying you're not worried about anything because, well, you're told not to worry. Well, I remember the Roman Catholic Church telling the people during the Black Plague that only the sinners would die. Now that's to me, that's a form of brainwashing to the masses, that the masses sucked up, because you see, the people with very little education, who can't think too deeply, that would appease them. So I'm not going to discuss what I'm not qualified to discuss, but I am going to discuss what I see and what I think about it. Because if you don't hear what I think about it, then you're not getting the real big picture, because as anyone should know already, I see things in a whole different way. But this video is going to be a little hodgepodge of things that's going to eventually lead to a discussion. The Earth grid ley line observation and those discoveries that came as a result of this Earth line observation when I was researching the Baltimore riots allowed me to learn and see something very, very, because you see, if you remember nothing more, remember this. I fixated on the fact that these cities were established within a special area, as if somebody knew, because this isn't an accident for it to be this way, and for the design to match the Pope's hat that he wears during the Catholic ceremonies, when he's got the big, the rod and everything, when he's wearing that special hat. For this to be shaped and designed like the Pope's hat, which also incorporates his entire time frame that he's here in the United States. Philadelphia, Amtrak number 188, derailed. Now, I posted a comment, and I'll merely say this. I already know it's a ritualized event. I know it's a false flag event. And what allows me to think and say this is, aside from the code that's in the event already, the Amtrak Philadelphia crash, the number of deaths, the number injured, the train number. But what's key about the entire event, just from a historical perspective, and I know a lot of you just don't keep up with these things, but because I cover the ritual angle, we have a train derailment in our false flag ritual history that's in my files for you to review. It goes back to January 25th, the year 2013, the Spain derailment, where 79, 80 people were killed, which was caught in video, and I did a video showing the train going around a corner exactly like the one here in Philadelphia, the exact same type of turn. And both Amtrak witnesses have already given reports, if you haven't already heard or seen them, stating that the train was traveling in excess of 100 miles an hour. Now, before it lost control in that corner. Now, I contend it had to be going fast in order to enter that corner, in order to derail. You follow my logic? Now, how can a train be going 100 miles an hour without some digital mechanism or some human person being involved who's aware that this train is going too fast? Now, once again, was the train going too fast because it was under some form of remote control from outside the train itself? Perhaps. We may never know. But the fact that the Amtrak train was traveling over 100 miles going into a corner, very reminiscent of the Spain crash, where that train went into a corner at excessive speeds and, of course, derailed and was caught on camera for the world to see. Now, I mention this because, you see, for me, I'm not going to do a video on all that code because, to me, it's just ritual preparation. They're sanctifying Philadelphia ritually with the event of the Amtrak crash and the deaths that followed in preparation for the Pope's arrival. Now, I have to mention this because this is part of these elements that I hate to discuss, but if I don't, I'm not being honest with you or myself. And, buddy, I'm going to tell you, I see a lot more than I lead on, and what I'm getting ready to discuss is a serious matter. And for those of you into religion, into the finer aspects of the Bible and things of that nature, I'm going to show you something that I think is going to be very key and important to you from just the religious point of view. But okay, now, seeing that the earth ley lines and the special zone and a six-pointed star produced all of the dates that will encompass the Pope's visit, and the fact that I kept focusing and fixating on the fact that there's no way someone knew, this leads to this time travel advanced knowledge aspect that I have to wait till the end. But I have to get this out there so that you understand it's something that's in play and has to be considered, and so it has to be discussed. Now, as a result of this six-pointed star that's been in the picture so much, Jade Helm, Walmart closures, and of course now it's involved in many things involved with the term Zionism, the Zionist state of Israel. Now, I would tell you, because when I went to Wikipedia, and I'll provide links for those of you who want to get in depth and research Zionism and some of the things I'm going to mention, there are seven basic groupings of Zionism, different types of Zionism. There's religious Zionism, green Zionism, labor Zionism. There's all kinds of different Zionisms. Okay, national Zionism. And so Zionism, in a nutshell, is communism, communist. Okay, that's why the Zionists seek to control the world and everyone in it, because they want control, complete and utter control over life and death, over everything and every resource on this planet. This is a long time. It's been the dream of many people, and they've pursued it secretly, funded it. And who now we need to get into these groups now, because you see, when I got to thinking, who could have had the knowledge? What group in existence at the time, at the time of the founding of these cities in our nation, who before then could have influenced the establishment of these cities in the places that they would have been established in accordance to the ley lines? Who would have had knowledge of this before ley lines were even known to exist? Well, the only group that existed in the world at the time that kept secrets from the world, and still does, was the Roman Catholic Church, the popes. Okay? Now, let's talk about the popes, because what I believe we're getting ready to see here in the very near future is something very akin, very like the transition of Rome into a religion through Constantine, who was the first Roman emperor, who then became in essence like the first pope, because he was the first leader to say that you shouldn't kill Christians. Okay? Now, because of that, Constantine is credited with kind of setting the wheels into motion that created the Roman Catholic Church. Now, okay, this is important. It's important you know this, because you see, I believe that there are certain things in our history that were allowed to occur the way it occurred in order to create the history that we have, because that's time manipulation. Now, okay, along with the Catholic Church, and specifically now, I'm going to take you through a little bit of history here, okay? Because you see, when we talk Zionism, if you were to talk Herschel, 1896, the book that he wrote, talking about, a homeland for the Jews and kind of a nationalistic state of Israel, okay? Oh, that quest and that desire goes much way further back in history. When I realized as part of this research that Napoleon Bonaparte, Queen Victoria, that they were in support of this Zionist quest of a Israeli state homeland, it leads to, once again, the Roman Catholic Church is involved here big time. And they still are, because they're part of the two sides of a coin here. One side, the Roman Catholic Church, is on one side of the coin, and the Zionist element of this world are on the other. Now, since the Zionist element of this world seeks to control the world and everyone in it, while committing a genocide and eliminating all the people that it won't serve their purposes or won't serve them, they plan on, well, how can you get to 500 million people in the world if you don't kill a few billion people in the process? Now, that's their quest. Now, you need to keep that in mind. They're ruthless. Their ruthlessness has been proven throughout history. So anything I say with regard to the Jesuits or the Zionists and their actions, for those Zionists who hide behind religion, because you see, a Zionist can be a Catholic, a Zionist can be a Baptist, a Zionist can be a black person, a Zionist can be a good Bible-toting Christian, a Zionist can be anyone. But for the most part, they're the fake Jews who hide behind religion. And, well, the state of Israel in this day and age is really nothing but a criminal organization, financial world organization, a criminal banking organization hiding behind the veil of religion. And it's unfortunate, because you see, for the Jews that are real Jews and don't support Zionism, well, they have to be careful how they do that, because you see, the Zionists have proven that when the Jews are expendable, the Jews will be sacrificed just like with everyone else, because if you don't go along, well, they're going to get rid of you. And they keep track of who doesn't go along with their program, which is why they like to keep lists of who they need to kill and eliminate. which is why our world has been corrupted by Zionist elements hiding behind the religion of the Jews, pretending to be Jews, having Jewish names, and of course they bring discredit to any real Jews because of their actions. But I would tell you, because I'm a realist, for every lousy satanic Zionist Jew that's in existence, there's probably 1,000 temple-going Jews who support them, because as long as there's money to be made, it's like nobody gives a damn as long as it's profitable for everybody. It's like religion doesn't matter, because you see, among the Zionists, they're atheists. They don't believe in God, which is why they're ruthless. You see, they don't believe in heaven and hell, so they're not afraid of your religion. If you think that, well, you're going to go to hell for killing these people, they don't worry about that crap at all. Okay, now I have to say some things, and I'm going to, because you need to understand some things I'm getting ready to say here are real as can be. We live in a world these days, and I just want to use the term ZOG. Now, ZOG is separate from Zionist. A Zionist and ZOG are two different terms. ZOG is a Zionist-occupied government, which is the United States has become. But it's just one of many nations that's occupied by the Zionists. And even though France, you look at these other countries that that support the U.S. and Israel, they're all Zionist-occupied governments. The leaders, the infrastructure, the banking, everything is Zionist. Now, Zionists are different from the Zionist-occupied government, and I just want to make that, distinction. But okay, we saw in military Jade Helm 15, the logo, this involvement of the six-pointed star, which points to Zionists. Okay, now, and let's talk about some of the key elements that Jade Helm is supposedly involved in. Now, we got ISIS, a terrorist group, okay, who's a construct of the CIA and Israel Mossad. So they orchestrate ISIS as a terror group in the United States. The CIA on one side orchestrates the military that's controlled by, once again, Zionist military leaders that have been put in position by key Zionist elements in intelligence, national security. Because you see, our whole foreign policy, if you look at our National Security Council, who heads it? Just take a look. You'll see they're Zionist Jews, okay? Our intelligence is corrupted by the fact that Israel has had access to our intelligence, which is why the NSA and the CIA and our national security is a ZOG. Zionist elements control, just like they've influenced and were able to eliminate all of those people that they knew, officers who they knew would not go along with the program. Oh, they eliminated them. And who did they put in their place? The people that would go along. And why is it always that they have Jewish-sounding names, or the fact that they are Jewish? Doesn't that matter to anybody? Because, you see, it's not about being Jewish. It's about being a Zionist communist who wants to overthrow this nation and everything this nation was founded on. So that what? So that they, as a Jewish group, can rule the world. Okay? So that they can live in their pompous, fabulous lifestyles, while the rest of us, slaves to them, exist. You see, that's the only world. It's going to be them and us. And if you're not one of them, not one of them by blood, well, then you're going to be a slave. And if you're not going to be a slave, you're going to be eliminated. Simple. Old, disabled, mentally, those in prison that are problematic, the lame, the sick, the lazy, it doesn't matter. The veterans, the outspoken people, the elderly, anybody on any kind of social aid or check is going to die. Because, you see, this leads into this financial collapse. Now, many people are talking about a financial collapse of our dollar, and which first of all, we're talking the real deal here. It's coming. But like I've said before, if fiat currency collapses, if our dollar is no longer any good, then the New World Order and all of their slaves, have a problem. Because, you see, if you're a slave to one of these major corporations and your wife and children at home can't buy groceries, can't buy gas, can't pay the bills, can't live, can't eat or drink, well, what are they going to do? You see, you're not going to want to work. You're going to want to go take care of your family. I've contended that these major corporations, the Zionist-owned corporations, the one involved with the New World Order plan to do what I've just stated earlier, okay, take over the world, okay, they're making provisions to take care of their slave army, but not before they eliminate and take care of who they need to eliminate. So as long as the dollar is good and fiat currency still exists, we're all in danger. See, because they need this currency to exist in order to pay all of the people in the middle, transporters and prison people and security and law enforcement and mercenaries and military and anyone in between that gets paid, okay, needing fiat currency. Well, you see, that's why they got to get rid of the people that they know they're not going to be able to pay anymore, because you see, once the payments stop, all these people, millions in various categories, they're going to look at each other and say, well, what am I going to do now? And so among certain groups, it's going to lead to desperation, crime, and lawlessness, anarchy, chaos, which is what the New World Order wants. But still, religion is a factor in all of this anarchy and chaos. And let me get back to the religious aspect, because you see, there are some things in history that I have to explain so that you understand why I'm even doing this video. Now, the Roman Catholic Church came into existence at a transition between the Roman Empire and the existence of Christianity, the Roman Catholic Church. I believe that transition is getting ready to take place again in our near future here. And this finding leads me to this finding, because this is what allowed me to see that everything that's in current play, the Walmart store closings, our Department of Homeland Security, okay, all our Zionist, Israeli, these dual citizen Americans who are in charge of the levers of our government, who shouldn't even be there, okay, let alone involved in our national intelligence or security, okay, but nonetheless, they control our CIA, our national security. They're controlling the terrorist groups. They're controlling the key elements needing to support their plan. Walmart, their logistics, their locations, their thousands of stores. There's a multitude of things that Walmart is set up to deal with the military and Department of Homeland Security in mutual support of anything that they would do. Now, the fact that the CIA, these are all the players. And the reason I put this in this way, and I put the Jesuits and Pope Francis here in the middle, because you see, Pope Francis, from what I've learned, is the first Jesuit Pope. Now, why is that important? Because it goes back to who I suspected would have been the people, the group, with the ability to influence these decisions in our nation within these ley lines that hadn't yet been discovered, because science didn't know what, we hadn't progressed that far, okay? So what group? Roman Catholic Church. Who specifically? The Jesuits. Now, the fact that the Jesuit order, now, the founder and 6 others, now that's a total of 7. 7 people, the founder plus 6 others. On August 15th, in the year 1534, basically brought about what the Jesuit order. It was a few years later, on September 27th, in the year 1540, when Pope Paul III basically sanctioned the Jesuit order and made them like a charter of the Roman Catholic Church and established them into existence, and gave them the power and the things that we've all... Now, there's been a progression and involvement of the Jesuit order, even among other popes as time evolved, but this is important because, you see, I highlighted 815 because I'm not sure who specifically it was. I've been rather busy with so many things. 815, I believe, was being talked by some religious people, and I, of course, now... I pay attention to dates, but this one I merely came across and I wasn't quite sure. But I pointed out because to know that this was the date that the Jesuit order was created says something. Just as the fact that 927, which is within this window that the Pope visits the United States of America is shown as the date that the Pope created the Jesuit order. And why is this important? Because you see, the Jesuits, I believe, are who's involved in influencing the locations where these major cities eventually went into. The Roman Catholic Church somehow had a role through influence, overt or covert. They could have influenced because of their money. They could have influenced people of the non-Catholic religion, because you see, the Zionists work by deception, just like Mossad. Everything is a lie, a deception, a deceit, and it's why? Because in order to gain the control that they seek, you can't have any mercy towards your enemy, and that's what we're considered. We're the enemy of the Zionist state that wishes to take over this planet. And who are they in cahoots with? They're in cahoots with the Roman Catholic Church. And now that the Pope is due to visit at a time before a prophesied calamity in September, an asteroid. Now, is there going to be an impact? I don't know. Is there an alien factor involved that's going to prevent the asteroid impact? I don't know. What's the Pope going to say? I don't know. He's going to be talking about peace, okay? Here's the relationship you need to see. If Zionist and Zionism is intending to take over the world and control the planet and genocide the billions of people on this planet, to rid it of the useless eaters, and to only keep those that will serve the needs of the Zionist world, then the one world religion is a tool of a Zionist element to help them control the planet with a one world religion once you get to the numbers established after you kill off everyone who you need to kill. You see, you don't want converts before the cleansing, because it's not going to matter. The only people that need to be converted into this new religion are the people that the new Zionist world seeks to, this one world government, new world order, from all practical purposes appears Zionist. But I know that even that is a deception. And that's because the players appears to be Zionist Israel and the Roman Catholic Church, with Pope Francis as the first Jesuit Pope, to be located in a location that I theorize could have only been constructed by the elements of the Jesuits of the Roman Catholic Church, because of the timing and because of this, when you get to looking at, the history, the fact that this is when they established the Jesuit order as a group, with some, kind of like rules and regulations and things that would, mark them as being part of the Jesuit order, their belief system. Primarily it was to support, when they wanted to become the holy warriors for the Catholic Church. Well, the church couldn't do anything but embrace them. Oh yeah, because now the church has a personal army that are called Jesuit priests. And they also are an intelligence agency that went around the world, known as the Black Robes. And while they infiltrated in all the nations as a religious element, priests, servants of God, okay, they impressed many world leaders, but they frightened and or endangered many others who didn't see them as being, what they claimed to be. And so I guess in those nations that didn't see them the way that they wanted them to be seen, well, they got rid of those people. They genocided the entire nation or the entire region of that world. And so, when I think of the Inquisition and the millions upon millions and millions of people that have died through religious wars, and to realize, the stories we hear today, that all wars were created by the Jews, the Zionist Jews, hiding behind religion, claiming to be Jews, which is why Jews have such a bad name, because you see, it's these damn Zionists hiding in their midst, who they refuse to admit are there, and if they do admit it, they do it very quietly, because they may lose making money, or may not be allowed to make any more money once you insult Satan's army. Well, then you're not going to make any more money with them, and that's the name of the game. Now, the fact that the Pope's visit is key to so many things. This finding of this Jesuits. The Jesuit element has always been a factor. The Jesuit order has been in play for a long time. And since they call themselves, the black robes with a black pope, and now they truly have a black pope supposedly hiding behind the Roman Catholic Church, to realize that they're in league with the Zionists, the state of Israel, to achieve this world domination, only says that they're in league with the devil, because you see, they want to be, obviously, if you're in religion, if you're a world leader of religion, you want to maintain that lofty title and be able to have a monopoly. And what better group to get in bed with if you want to be the only religion in the world? The Zionists. So it's a mutual relationship, two sides of the coin, both benefiting from their relationship with each other. But what happens all of this is timed to obviously something that's going to happen in September. That's what worries me, because I realize a lot of things could happen long before July ever rolls around. Because you see, this thing with the currency, it's got, as long as it's still active, we're in danger, people, because you see, they need this money to pay all the slaves that are going to do all the evil before the dollar collapses. If you hear nothing more, the Jesuits are in play. Pope Francis is in play. While he's in the United States, it's key to what's going to happen in July, and many things that are probably going to happen long before we get to July. So, with all that being said, I hope the fact that this 8/15 date, you see, it relates to the Jesuits. So if this date was key to somebody, from the observational perspective, this 8/15 sequence, this pattern, relates to the date the Jesuit order was created by its 7 founders. Later, when the Pope obviously sanctioned the group, made them official, 9/27, which is incorporated into this. So for this date, the Pope's date, to be incorporated into this design that looks like the Pope's hat, that encompasses his entire visit here to the United States to speak before Congress, the UN General Assembly, and to be in Philadelphia, well, like I said, this is a deep, deep discussion, people, and it involves many, many elements that are not simple to discuss. And like I said at the beginning, I don't feel best qualified to discuss the religious elements of this, so I'm going to leave it for you. But if nothing more, please bear in mind, the Jesuits are in play because they have their Pope in play, and the reason this is key to this New World Order in-game scenario is because I believe they're in bed with the Zionist Israel, the Zionist element of the world that wishes to take over the world, decimate the world of the useless eaters, and begin this New World Order where they're in control of everything. World resources and control over life and death over those that remain alive. Now, that's the only kind of control these bastards want. And so, that's why a global war, a tsunami, earthquakes, volcano eruptions, New Madrid fault, San Andreas fault, all the, Hoover Dam being exploded, all kinds of things. The key thing that I would tell you, though, that I have been researching that I'm going to leave you on, because sometimes, I get lost in my own research and don't see the obvious that's in front of me. When I started doing modeling of an impact into the Atlantic Ocean of an object as large as, that would need to be to do the job, I realized that the East Coast, to include even the Gulf Coast of the United States, would be inundated with a tsunami wave. When I patterned that, how far inland I estimated the wave would go based on the size of the impact and the angle of strike, I realized that there would be nuclear plants, energy resources into the hundreds. Hundreds of nuclear plants would be underwater, which would begin another type of disaster for the survivors, which I believe is part of the gameplay that is needed in such a hellish environment where they're going to begin such a thing. Because you see, if they allow the impact to occur, let's say it has to occur, they have no control over it, it's going to occur. That ensuing tsunami and all the disaster effects, we're talking about millions of people being killed within seconds or minutes of the impact. if indeed the asteroid impacts west of Puerto Rico as prophesized, based on the simulation that I ran, Puerto Rico wouldn't exist. Okay? A wave, there's no mountain high enough in Puerto Rico that you could climb. The wave would still be higher than you could imagine, traveling at 1,000 miles an hour. I mean, there's nothing that's going to not be washed away. And so when I realized that all of the nuclear plants and energy resources in the aftermath of any type of tsunami, especially an impact into the Atlantic Ocean, that the survivors would be dealing with no energy, radiation poisoning, many things. The loss of power alone would mean no communication, but the radiation poisoning and which way the clouds and all the water contaminated, it would just, that's one aspect of the calamity that's possible that I haven't had much time to dwell on, but the more I do it, the more it makes me realize that while the impact itself would be devastating to the planet and to the people that survive, those that survive would be living in a new kind of hell, a new kind of nightmare. And that's, I believe, the kind of hell and nightmare that they seek to create so that they can control the masses in any such aftermath. Because if they can get you to leave your area because you know the food and water and animal life, everything is going to die because of radiation poisoning, well, you're going to get up and go wherever they tell you to. And if they're going to help you get up and go, like get on this train or get on this bus, well, then you're going to move you and your family to do so. But you see, all of this has been a contrivance. Everything has been planned. And so now the hardest part, the final part that I wish to discuss, I said long ago that you see, I've seen the Zionist element from JFK to 9/11. Their markers have always been there. And of course that marker, because I realize the Bush cabal uses the Israeli Mossad, CIA, the Zionist element, they're in league with each other, part of that old Nazi element, the Bushes. So to see them, involved in certain things, I always understood to be kind of matter of fact, but I now realize that from a real world perspective, Israel is in control and has been for quite some time of time travel technology. Now, it isn't of the same type or caliber of time travel technology that the Bush cabal and the American New World Order possesses and has been using. Now, this means, because you see, if you do your research, you're going to realize that among the Roman Catholic Church, there were some Franciscan monks or some people involved that apparently discovered how to something that generated frequencies that allowed them to be able to see the future, whether to see or hear the future. Now, that's kind of a looking glass technology. Now, the fact that the Roman Catholic Church, when I realized they were in possession of this, made sense. Because you see, all during MH370, there were the Pope. Many things were happening with the Pope, ritual code-wise, that was protecting him and his Ninth Circle cult involvement in the media and all the things that were going on. And it was also, you see, his ritual elements within the MH370 affair was in a way protecting MH370. And since we know the MH370 affair was a CIA Mossad construct, okay, because has anyone ever seen their MH370 twin plane? Has it ever been accounted for after the fact? Somebody should really check into that, okay? But the Pope's ritual elements were protecting the Zionist elements. The Pope's ritual elements during MH370 were protecting the Zionist elements that created MH370, along with the government, the CIA, and the governmental elements that make up ZOG, okay, the Zionist occupied government. Now, the fact that the Catholic elements, a secret element of the Catholic Church, which I would presume to be the Jesuit order, possesses a form of time travel technology that they have in some way shared with the Israelis because they have been working in sync in a way that is outside the scope of the time travel, time manipulation that the Bush cabal has affected, because when they do a time manipulation, it's of a whole different nature, a whole different way, and it's evident. I mean, it's evident, and we've seen, for instance, during the Batman Aurora shooting, where it appeared as if one group was fighting another group, although they blamed it all on James Holmes and, a lone gunman who was found unconscious in a locked car. One group could have been undermining the other group, and you never know why one group was doing what they were doing, but since they all are working in sync, the only thing I know that is two sides of a coin: the state of Israel and Zionism, world Zionism, and the Roman Catholic Church, which is under the control of Pope Francis, the first Jesuit Pope, which means the Jesuits are under his control because they support him, even though they have their own black Pope. What's coming together here is the New World Order religion and the New World Order go hand in hand. And so these two players are part of that. Now, let me just say the final part here, and then I'll move on. The fact that at present, everything involving the Jade Helm exercise is ZOG controlled. Please bear in mind, our military, key elements, generals, key players, Zionist. Our intelligence, NSA, CIA, all the key players in any form of national security or intelligence, Zionist controlled. National Security Council, our foreign policy, Zionist controlled. Take a look at Obama's national security team. You'll see that they're all Zionist Jews. Okay? Our State Department. Now this is where problems begin, because they are what allow immigration. They are what allow their people to come in and to exit secretly, quietly, because the State Department controls that aspect, once again, under Zionist control. Our Justice Department, at the highest level, down to the lowest level, law enforcement, predominantly controlled by Zionist elements, in some way, shape, or form, whether you believe it or not. Look at Department of Homeland Security as an example, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, our court systems, our federal court systems, Supreme Court, even the local and state, courts are inundated with Zionist communists or supporters of the Zionist communist agenda. As long as they profit and have some stature in life and are better than everybody else, the players go along to get along. But they're still communist Zionists going along to get along. Medicine. You see, we have cures for things that they don't want us to have the cures for. And so they play this, they're using medicine as a means to profit off the sickness of the human population. They use doctors now not to cure things, but to prescribe pharmacy pills that allows them to make money from the pharmaceutical companies that pay them to prescribe their drugs. So it's a symbiotic relationship between doctors and pharmaceuticals. And until that corruption ends, we're never ever going to solve anything. We have a Zionist element in science that corrupts the truth of what we think about science, and they tell us one thing, and yet people with thinking brains and evidence can prove otherwise. Now, they control Zionist elements, major food corporations, control food and water resources. Even if you look at the beer and beverage, anything dealing with water is a beverage. And so, but the key element here, our world markets, our financial markets, and it's why the world is in the dilemma it is today, because Zionist elements have robbed the world of trillions upon trillions and trillions of dollars, and then the moment somebody says, wait a minute, you got to stop, then they call them terrorists and want to annihilate them and bring war upon them and decimate the people, ruin the infrastructure. Why? So that Zionist corporations can go back in there and rebuild them. Concrete companies, building companies, electrical companies, engineering companies, all the things that that need to be redone after something's blown up and destroyed. The same people making money over and over and over again off of death and destruction. Now, media. All of our media, print, radio, television, controlled by Zionist elements. So who believes anything these bastards say? I don't, okay? Now, our entire military-industrial complex is basically controlled by Zionist elements. And it leads one to believe, if you look at history and the things that have happened, that under Eisenhower warned JFK about the coming military-industrial complex. But I believe it was too late. I think the Zionist element was already ingrained into our nation, right, literally, during World War II specifically, because of all the deception and the way that they played in the way things played out. But okay. Now, from a nationalistic perspective, if you look at the air transportation, we're talking the jetliners, the planes in the sky, trains, rail, Amtrak, sea transport, all the maritime shipping, okay? You'll see that Zionist corporations can control the lot. Do they control them all? No, but even the small players somehow kowtow to the big players, and so they go along to get along. Okay, now, energy. This is the big one. You see, they want to control all the energy, like the oil industry, nuclear reactors, your lights, your gas, anything to deal with power or energy, they want to be in the middle of. And you can say that they're not all Zionist, but they all work for and or contribute to the Zionist goals, whether they admit to it or not. Because if they're going along to get along because they're making money, then they're part of the problem, okay, whether they call themselves Zionist or not. Now, last thing I would say is that ZOG 15, you probably saw this and probably may have thought I made a mistake. No, I put that there for a reason. Because you see, we're in danger, people. We're in danger from many, many things happening as an offshoot of the Jade Helm exercise, the many elements that could go down as a result of those things that many think or suspect are incorporated into the Jade Helm design. Roundups, dissidents, guns, secessionists, militia groups, politicals, anybody, you see, like I said, they got to start taking care of business before the dollar collapses, because they got to have a way to pay these people. But okay, ZOG 15. There are those, if you put your ear to the ground, and of course the Zionists don't give a damn, because they think they're exempt from everything. I think they're even thinking they're exempt from dying. I think they're exempt from death. That's what they think, maybe. But let me just say this. I heard some interesting discussion, kind of, in a big room, a lot of people talking, you hear things. And Jade Helm 15 was the topic of discussion. And while there are many people in Texas who are concerned that something is going to go down, that the government is making a move against Texas because Texas is hostile to the actions of the federal government. They also asked for all their gold back. Remember that? Under Rick Perry, they asked for all their gold bullion back from the Federal Reserve. And what the Federal Reserve told them? We'll give you digital dollars because it's too risky to move it to Texas. Yeah, right. Anyway, ZOG 15. I heard these people talking, and they say, if Jade Helm goes down in any way, shape, or form, dealing with the roundup of Americans, veterans, citizens who merely want to be, free Americans, speak their mind, have a voice. For those type of people, you're merely expressing what an American is. Now, if you're asking people to run out there and kill people, well, then you're inciting violence, and that's not what I'm doing. But this is what I heard, is that if Jade Helm goes down dirty in the way that the government may go down that road of evil in order to get rid of all the people before the money collapses, if Jade Helm goes down that evil, dark road, the angel of death is waiting for ZOG. That's right. If Jade Helm 15 goes down dirty, the angel of death is going to strike the ZOG elements throughout the world, especially in the United States of America. Because you see, what better time? You see, you got to understand, anarchy and chaos is not anything that I would want for this nation. But during anarchy and chaos is the best time to get rid of your problems. And if you get rid of your problems before the problem truly gets out of control, then you won't be one of those people who years from now in history will say, we saw them coming, but we didn't do anything. Because you see, I contend that if they have structured and have thought about this the way that I know they've structured and thought about it, they'll create a disaster where you and your family will be compelled to go into the hands of FEMA. And that is a very psychological way of not having you resist them. And once you're in their control, well, then that's it. You see, and so if you're not going to go that way, you got to ask yourself, well, what way am I going to go? Because you see, if they start coming down the street, cleaning houses one at a time, and you're astute enough to know that they're coming, let's say you're there with your family. What, you're going to have a shootout and get your family killed because that's going to be your final stand? Well, you may have a wife who's willing to do it and some grown kids that are willing to back you up. Now, that's a family that's in it together, okay? But when you got a wife and kids who don't know anything about conspiracies, don't know anything about New World Order, FEMA camps, guillotines, don't care about chemtrails, don't know about all the chemicals and pharmaceuticals that kill you, mind control you, nanotechnology, mind control weapons. When people are totally clueless to what the New World Order is really about, there are many people who I believe, good veterans and good Americans, who will capitulate and won't fight because they don't want to harm or endanger their family. And if that's the case, well, then you better get a grip on reality, because not fighting and not protecting your family is leading them to slaughter. And so, if Jade Helm 15 goes dirty, MrCati says, I'm thinking ZOG 15, the angel of death, is going to make its appearance. And when it does, and where it does, is going to be anybody's guess. Because during chaos, we're not going to know. Who's going to know? And who's going to care if a Zionist who truly is committed to the killing of humanity, if these people who have espoused open genocide of the people, like Bill Gates, okay, billionaire, talking genocide of the people like it's just nonchalant. We need to get rid of these black people and these worthless people who are too ignorant to move out of a desert where nothing grows. His attitude is only that of an attitude of a rich man who has too much, who thinks he can never lose it. Well, I learned a long time ago, the only thing you can really take from a rich man who thinks he has it all is take his life. Because that's the only thing he truly values. Because, you see, he can't appreciate his riches and his valuables and his mansions and his lifestyle and his ego unless he's got that money, okay? And unless he's got a life to live. And so, if Jade Helm does go down dirty, something tells me ZOG 15 is going to go down, and it's going to go down to help clean up and balance out what Jade Helm may be all about. But who knows? I'm hoping Jade Helm doesn't go the way it goes, because in the end run, I don't believe anyone can benefit from a war. But in a war where an enemy has declared themselves to be our sworn enemy, who will, as long as they live, plan and scheme and conspire to kill us, to poison us, and to rob us all at the same time, well, that's a group of people who needs to be dealt with. And if you don't see it and you don't agree, that's your right not to agree. But I see it as a reality that sooner or later, this nation and the real people in America who understand who the real enemy is are going to have to do something to the real enemy. See, blowing up post offices or burning down, liquor stores doesn't solve a damn thing at all. But taking care of the ZOG elements in this nation that have proven themselves to be who they are through their own actions, hey, I'm just telling you what I heard. And so with that in mind, I want to thank you for listening to me and for considering what I had to say. I know it may have sounded a little discombobulated, but it's not scripted. And like I said, it's a difficult subject to discuss. And for those areas that I felt very uncomfortable discussing, you probably noticed it because, well, I can't talk, rapture and revelations and all these biblical scriptures and things that might allude to this or that. But I hope I've helped those of you that do. And so, well, if you got something from it, I'm glad you did. And if you didn't, well, all I can say is I tried. Hope and the Zionist world element are in partnership together for the one world government and the one world religion. Well, next time. Bye-bye.